The Age of Imperialism and Foreigners. Early Korean Perceptions of Foreigners.
For this set of lectures, my name is Professor Lian Yu, and we are going to look at how foreigners were perceived in the Joseon Dynasty and how the concept of foreigners began to change and their roles during the Joseon Dynasty evolved over time. So come with me and we're going to examine the first Westerners that were introduced into Korea around the 19th century and then how this changed over the next 50 years or so. For us to really understand how Koreans viewed foreigners during the late Joseon Dynasty, we need to understand the system of foreign relations that existed at this time. And this system of foreign relations was called the tributary system. The tributary system was a system that had been in place for hundreds of years. And so by the time Westerners arrived, they came to an area where a system of foreign relations was already in place, and they began to disturb the system and really offset the balance of power at this time. But during this time, the tributary system and Joseon's participation in it meant that anybody outside of this system was considered a barbarian. So, for example, the Japanese to the east were considered to be the Eastern barbarians, and Europeans to the west were considered to be Western barbarians. Westerners, or these Western barbarians, they lived outside the realm of civilization, and thus the reason why they were considered to be barbaric. This image shows how we can visualize the tributary system. So in the center would be China, and for this time period, this would be the Qing Dynasty. And the Qing Dynasty was considered to be the center of civilization. And then anything outside of this, the civilization radiates from the center and become less and less civilized the further you move away from the center. Now, the Joseon Dynasty was considered to be a civilized vassal state, and so since they were within the tributary system and they were very close to the center, they were considered to be very civilized. Not as civilized as the Chinese, but still very civilized. However, there were countries that were outside of this system and that were not a part of the tributary system. So this would include Japan. Japan was excluded from the tributary system, and so because of this, they were considered to be barbarians. The Ryukyu Islands, on the other hand, were a part of the tributary system, and they actually participated in this, so they were included in this, as was other countries such as Vietnam. So for many years, because of the tributary system, this system brought harmony and stability in the region. However, as Western imperialist powers began to infringe upon this area, first they colonized India and Indonesia and further made inroads into East Asia. This really began to disturb the system that had already been in place, and it also offset the balance of power. But as the Western imperialist powers began to make their inroads, first into China, they forced themselves onto China. They were very aggressive. What we see is the First Opium War, the Second Opium War, and the storming of the capital, the seizure of Hong Kong. And so all of these acts only reinforced the very negative image that the Chinese and the Koreans had of Westerners and reinforced their idea that Westerners were indeed barbaric. if we look at Joseon's initial interactions with Westerners, we will see that this also confirmed this view. So the first interaction that the Joseon had was with the French, and then with the Americans and with Prussians. And in each case, Westerners were very hostile, very aggressive. They came in with their military power. And so this only again further confirmed that the Westerners were very barbaric and uncivilized.